How's it going, everybody? It's great to be alive. So, I just got done watching the part two Project Veritas video exposing the reality behind the government within these vaccines, as well as the FDA that's behind everything as well. It was, in fact, very disturbing, but yet very revealing at the same time. As I have said before, awareness is preparedness. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about just a little bit here.
A new book by James O'Keefe. Pre-order now at AmericanMuckraker.com.
Get blow darts of J&J and go to the unvaccinated, blow it into them, blow dart it into them. I remember reading about how with COVID trials they were having an issue recruiting African American people.
Can't blame them.
I can't, but at the same time, like, blow dart. It's where we're going. There needs to be a registry of the people who aren't vaccinated. Although that's sounding very Germany.
The Germany that you're thinking of is it?
Nazi Germany. I mean, think about it like the Jewish Star.
He looks like FDA or something.
Yeah. Again,
So unorganized.
blow dart. It is the perfect answer. And since J&J is an mRNA, you have no issue of it counteracting.
What's crazy is that on Facebook, if you promote anything like this, like you're letting people know that Nazi Germany and their political administration that was actually backed by the Catholic Church and many other people that were a part of these secret organizations that had another agenda, that I believe that as Adolf Hitler had also followed through with a lot of things, there was also things that he was trying to bring awareness to. Now, I'm not going to get down that road, but what I will say is that when you push memes towards the awareness of what had happened in the past, you will be flagged and actually shut down based off these community standards that are being invented by Mark Zuckerberg and his associates to try to suppress information so that we don't. So one, we are in objection towards history. It creates a trigger point of resentment, judgment, and denial. This then will create a party outside of a situation of where an individual like myself, who's trying to make people aware of the past, is now deemed a domestic terrorist. He's the bad guy just for him even opening his mouth. And instead of people sifting through the past and becoming educated and realizing that those who do not understand history, it could potentially be bound to repeat itself again. So that's why history is so important. And if history was properly taught in the educational systems today, you would have a whole entire day based off history to get the fundamental, real, actual details of what really happened behind every situation, not just the history of the people that won and then created their history for you to learn, but there's a history of the people and their civilizations that are the losers and the people that had been eradicated from history. There was people that were heroes fighting for certain things that actually got painted as villains, and we always forget the people. We always forget the people. Like people just like me and you, and what our perception is of life as, let's say, the adults that are actually going through the moments and motions of life, and then they are the ones that end up speaking, and they're either called conspiracy theorists or, you're highly educated. Thanks so much for your information. And I will utilize that. But as time goes on, this is now like almost something that's being passed by through oral traditions, oral information of beliefs and truth and facts that eventually, through time, because of the authorized information and the textbooks that are being created, they're being created for the future generations, not the people living in the current now. So I could sit there and say, oh, well, our election was stolen. And people of this time would say, yeah, that's absolutely accurate. Somehow an 80-year-old generic man, a geriatric man, okay, an 80-year-old man is telling a generation that is 37 and 40-year-olds what to do still. You have people that are 50, okay, that are totally fed up with the government. They realize now they've been sold a bill of goods, okay, and they've been projecting this onto their youth, and a lot of their youth is either dead, suicidal, suffers mental, psychological problems like no other. The psychological illnesses of the people in this country is the paramount evidence of the external reality that we're living in. Because if this reality is really just a reflection of the internal self, we've been falling apart a long time on the inside before you can ever see it on the outside. But getting back to what I was saying, so when we have a nation of people being ran by people that no longer support this system, their viewpoint and perception is more real than anything that could ever come out of your media propaganda machine, okay? Or devices or whatever, because we are the ones that are actually experiencing it. And so if we say, oh, well, we're going through this because of this, and this is what really is happening, this is not what is being taught to your children and your children's children, and children's 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 children will never really get to hear the truth. So when you study history, what you're doing is understanding the actual, real, linear timeline of the present now, and how people had fought for certain things, and whether they were the good guy, they got painted as the bad guy. If we look back on history of, let's say, Nazi Germany killing a bunch of Jews, and maybe they were trying to go for Zionist bankers, and then painted it towards other, I wasn't there is what I'm trying to say. So for me to sit there and have such anti-German or anti-this or anti-Jew rhetoric come out of my mouth would be me swallowing information and allowing my emotions and everything to prey on itself to then say that, what, I'm not capable of becoming the same person? We're not capable of suffering the same suffrages and tyrannical, motives of a government and agenda. While they're selling you a script of goods on this hand, they're actually going to play, their hand on the other. It's a magic trick. We're going to distract you over here while we're playing a double-crossing hand on the other, basically. And I'm trying to think of words without actually coming across as so, angry and, in resentment, or even trying to push a message as if you have to believe what I'm saying. What I'm trying to do is give the power back to the people so they can engage in thinking for themselves. Whatever you hate about your own neighbor is what you hate about yourself, and it's still your own neighbor. So when you, as let's say a Democrat, look at a Republican and decide to hate everything about him, you are actually essentially becoming exactly what you hate and are pushing and projecting on him all those things and accusations and assumptions and all this stuff, delivering the message with the same hate and pain and resentment as what you're accusing them of. And the same with the Republicans. They can sit there all day and say, oh, well, they're idiots and this and that. But you're a part of a system that was literally developed in deception in 1871 when the actual Confederacy had fallen down, okay, which was the original government before 1770, as the time of 1776. So I'll show you. Check this out. All right. Jefferson's warnings, okay? In 1789, Thomas Jefferson warned that the judiciary, if given too much power, might ruin our republic. By the way, I'm located in the Republic of Maine, and wherever you're located in the continental United States of America is actually a republic. It's not a state. We don't live in a democracy. Okay, the new Constitution, which there was one, and it's a banker constitution, has secured these individual rights in the executive and legislative departments, but not in the judiciary. That means your judges and the people that you go to court with, they can actually screw you over and take away all your freedoms by looking at you as a straw man, okay, or a sui juris. No, that's not it. It's the ens legis. I apologize. A sui juris is the person who's actually operating as the full capacity of a person that is above all things. So it says, It should not have established trials by the people themselves, that is to say, by jury, emphasis added. The judiciary of the United States is the subtle corpse of sappers and miners constantly working underground to undermine the foundations of our confederated fabric. 1820. The federal judiciary, an irresponsible body for impeachment, is scarcely a scarecrow, working like gravity by night and by day, gaining a little today and a little tomorrow, and advancing its noiseless step like a thief over the field of jurisdiction, until all shall be usurped from the states, and government of all the consolidated into one, when all government, in little as in great things, shall be drawn to Washington as the centra of all power. It will render powerless the checks provided of one government on another, and will become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated. Emphasis added. 1821. The opinion which gives to the judges the right to decide what laws are constitutional and what not only for themselves in their own sphere of action, but for the legislative and executive also in their spheres, would make the judiciary a despotic branch. Exactly. Like basically saying that there's a conflict of interest between the powers that be. So if the judge, okay, and the court system are part of the executive branch or the judiciary branch, then that means that the police officers operated at a different capacity in a different branch. So that means that it would be a conflict of interest if your police officer that pulled you over was also the witness of the state in the judiciary branch that also is convicting you. So, because you have the executive powers, which is where the police fall under. So you can't have the judiciary power and the executive branch combined together, because what we now have is actually a Gestapo, a mafia, okay, of extorting people and going and violating their rights, which is exactly what's happening. So judges should be withdrawn from the bench whose erroneous biases are leading us to dissolution. And it may indeed injure them in fame or fortune. So it may indeed injure them in fame or fortune, but it saves the republic. So before, in the original 13th Amendment, you could not have a title of nobility and be a part of the government. So when they abolished the government in 1871 and the Civil War, which is still going on to this day, okay, it never ended. That's what people have failed to realize. So if you're an American or a Republican, you are looking at the Democrats not as Americans, but as a divided party, which was designed to be that way. So you hate yourself of all the things that you're not allowing within yourself, which is the very freedoms that you actually allowed in this country. So what we don't like about ourselves is what we don't like about other people, because we've denied it and resented and judged it, which means we don't understand it. So how can we have power over something, or at least have something that is in full acceptance if yet we don't understand it? So what we don't understand as a people, that the very power that the government has is the very power that was given to us by God. And I know you have to actually believe in God to believe in such thing. But I'll show you something. Again, and this is the last thing, and then we'll get into this video and then try to move on as fast as possible. In fact, I suggest you watch the video yourself, okay? So this is what it's going to say, okay? This is the pecking rule. It's basically jury duty, and this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go under it like this. All right, there are a few ways out of bondage. Bloodshed and war often result, but our founding fathers learned a better way, realizing that a creator is always above and greater than that which he creates. So if I believe that there's a God that created me and all things around me, I know that there's a spirit above all things, working all things, that are actually, hell, motivating me to make this message for you. You know, because it's not about me, it's actually about us. But if there's a creator that's above us, that means that I have to go through him to change things, and that's not going to happen. It's actually going to create a lot of problems for me. I highly suggest you read the Kybalion, 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 Lion, and also the Rosicrucian Cosmic Conception, as well as many other books that are available to you. But here we're going to go, okay? So it says, they established a 3-vote system which an informed citizenry can control those acting in the name of government. To be a good master, you must always remember the true pecking order or chain of command in this nation or all things. God created man. Man, that's you, created the Constitution. Wow. As I have said in my last video of the Declaration of Independence, we, as a body of men and minds, get together creating a language. We write it down. We then put that language from ink to paper, establishing something. So even though it was never established before, it is now in concrete by pen. This is why the pen can be mightier than the sword. Because when we establish things, we're setting it in true precedence of a foundation outside ourselves that is declaring something by that. So you created the Constitution. So it's a contract created by man, as many things are. The Constitution created government, and then government created corporations, etc. So the base of power was to remain we the people. But unfortunately, it was lost to those leaders acting in the name of government, such as politicians, bureaucrats, judges, lawyers, etc. As a result, America began to function like a democracy instead of a republic. A democracy is dangerous because it is a 1-vote system as opposed to a republic, which is a 3-vote system. 3 votes to check tyranny, not just one, and American citizens have not been informed of their other 2 votes. Our first vote is at the polls on election day when we pick those who are to represent us in the seats of government. But so think about that, to represent us. So when you vote somebody into office, you're allowing them to be you, to represent you, to represent you. You're not even you. It actually makes me disgustipated. But what can be done if those elected officials just don't perform as promised or expected? Well, the second 2 votes are the most effective means by which the common people of any nation on, turning a page, Earth have ever had in controlling those appointed to serve them in government. The second vote comes from when you serve on a grand jury. Before anyone can be brought to trial for a capital or infamous crime by those acting in the name of government, permission must be obtained from the people serving on the grand jury. The Minneapolis Star and Tribune in March 27, 1987 edition noted a purpose of the grand jury this way. A grand jury's purpose is to protect the public from an overzealous prosecutor. The third, which is actually the executor, and he's also the person that holds the check, that when the case is completely dissolved and in your favor, you can sue the state, and then the prosecutor is the one who actually has to pay up all the charges to you. The third is the most powerful vote. This is when you are acting as a jury member during a courtroom trial, and at this point, the buck stops with you. It is in this setting that each juror has more power than the president, all of Congress, and all the judges combined. Congress can legislate, which means make law, but the president or some other bureaucrat can make an order or issue regulations, and judges may instruct or make a decision, but no juror can ever be punished for voting not guilty. Any juror can, with impunity, choose to disregard the instructions of any judge or attorney in rendering his vote. If only one juror should vote not guilty for any reason, there is no conviction and no punishment at the end of the trial. Thus, those acting in the name of government must come before the common man to get permission to enforce a law. You are above the law. As a juror in a trial setting, when it comes to your individual vote of innocent or guilty, you truly are answerable only to God Almighty. Yeah, I mean, when you make a decision, you ever go back in the end of the day and be like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. Well, you're realizing with you, yourself here, your higher self, which is already in heaven, because what happens in heaven actually happens in here. What happens in the spiritual world happens first before it ever happens here. So you need to get aligned with your higher spiritual self, which is in the heavenly kingdom, so you can operate in your holy heavenly kingdom here on earth. Sorry to yell at you, but oh my gosh. So the First Amendment to the Constitution was born out of this great concept. However, judges today refuse to inform jurors of their rights, and the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, in a newspaper article appearing in its November 30th, 1984 edition entitled, "What Judges Don't Tell the Jury," stated. And this keeps going on, and I highly recommend you actually pick this up while it's still possibly available, which is a Citizen's Rule Book, okay? And it's like amazing, okay? There is something else I want to show you before we cancel this out, because it was talking about attorneys and judges and how you're actually more above the law, right? Well, let's look up the definition of an attorney. Attorney. Attorn, A-T-T-O-R-N or E-T-E-R-N, to turn over, to transfer to another money or goods. Money or goods, these are very heavy-duty words. To assign to some particular use or service. To consent to the transfer of rent or reversion. Because remember, we were talking about represent. So when you go to an attorney, they're actually the ones who are representing you in the court of law, not yourself. So you sign over all your rights right away in your jurisdiction as soon as you got an attorney. Sorry about the passion, if it offended you. By the way, James. Where is it? Right here. James, chapter 3. I got ADHD and I know how to use it. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. And if any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us. And we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, they are driven of fierce winds, and yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth, which means listen. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold how great the matter are. A little fire kindleth, and the tongue is a fire, and a world of iniquity, which is another word for wickedness. And so is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, of birds, and serpents, and the things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. So we must be very cautious of the double-edged sword that lives within our own lips. So anywho, it says, okay, so to become tenant, but yet those who are not offended are perfect, and those who do not offend in word are also perfect within the self, right? So that's where I think that less is more within speech, but I also am here to master communication. So it says to consent to transfer of the rent or reversion, to agree to become tenant to one as owner or landlord of an estate previously held of another, or to agree to recognize a new owner of a property or estate and promise payment of rent to him. An attorney is, in the most general sense of this term, denotes an agent or substitute, or one who is appointed and authorized to act in the place or instead of another. So he's an agent, and he's acting in the place of another. You see this? One acting on behalf of another. It is in most common usage, however, unless a contrary meaning is clearly intended, this term means attorney at law, lawyer, or counsel at law. Attorney means attorney, professional lawyer, association, corporation, or partnership authorized under applicable law to practice bankruptcy code 101. So we're bankrupt. America's bankrupt. So I'm going to look up the definition of goods. Here we go. A term of variable content, meaning it may include every species of personal property, or it may be given a very restricted meaning. So your name is your personal property. You are not your name. Your body is your personal property. And if you don't recognize it as a living vessel, a soul, and all these things, designed by the image of God, created in the image of God, here on earth as the image of God, with the same exact power as God, then you recognize yourself as a serf, a slave, a number, a social security number, a birth certificate, a birth, a ship. We are ship. Births at the docks. The doctor births you, okay? It's crazy, right? So then you get birth, all right? You know what happens whenever you get a ship that actually shows up with a whole bunch of goods? They start to create a certificate of all the things that are actually in, the weight of all the goods, everything that's on there, the name of everything and everything. They start to document it all. And then you get a live birth record, which is actually the living heir of your own self, distributed out towards the doctor, which then is a registrar. They register it to the state, then they turn around and then create a fictitious straw man, the ens legis, which is the goods. Okay, try to pick. This is huge. So then you, by consent, operate under the social security number, which is now a fictitious juristic entity. It is an artificial person. It is totally a scarecrow. And you believe you're that person, which then that's what they ask for everything, to get a job, a bank account, a driver's license, all these things. This is now no longer you as a person that's free and has right to do everything. It's because of all this state of mind of being a slave and asking permission instead of asking for forgiveness or letting them know who you are, which is you above the law. We just covered this. So you're giving yourself away. Look. Okay, so it says this. Or it may be given to a very restricted meaning. Items of merchandise, supplies, raw materials, or finished goods. Sometimes the meaning of goods is extended to include all tangible items, as in the phrase goods and services. It's literally what it just said in that thing. All things, the definition of a term within an attorney. Okay, so then it goes like this. This is where it gets good. So all things included specifically or specially manufactured goods, which are movable at the time of identification to the contract for sale other than the money in which the price is to be paid. Investment securities and things in action also includes the unborn of animals and growing crops and other identified things attached to realty as fixtures. UCC Statute 2-105. All things treated as movable for the purposes of a contract of storage or transportation, which transportation also follows under the definition of driving, a for-hire capacity, acting as transportation, acting as commercial use. I am transporting this individual from one place to the next. Goods. Seriously. Think about what I'm saying. Thank you. So it says, as used with the reference to secured transactions, goods include all things which are movable at the time of security interest attached or which are fixtures, but does not include money, documents, instruments, accounts, chattel paper, general intangibles, or minerals, or the like, including oil and gas before extraction. Goods also include standing timber, which is to be cut and removed under a conveyance or contract for sale, the unborn young of animals and growing crops. I'm starting to believe that they actually think that we are the true animals. So then it goes into a few different descriptions under goods, like capital goods, consumer goods, durable goods, finished goods, hard goods, and soft goods. And then it goes on, goods and chattels. So check this one out. This phrase is general denomination of personal property, which is you, as distinguished from real property. In the law of wills, the term goods of chattels will, unless restrained by the context, pass all the personal estate. So you are an estate. You are a nation walking. I love you. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you found this information crucial towards your own self moving forward as we claim our sovereignty, as we recognize our sovereignty. I know this video was long, but I hope it actually was educational. And if it was, please share among your friends, hit the like button, whatever you got to do, okay? Love you guys. Take care. You already know what to do.